Predatory. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It is Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. Predatory. No, we're not starting with Wander Franco today. We're going to start with Fernando Tatis Jr. and the lawsuit that he's filed against Big League Advance. Big League Advance is a company that we have talked about on Nothing Personal before, where they go around to minor league players and they say, hi, we would like to give you money. And generally minor league players say, we'd love to get money from you. What's it for? Well, nothing. You just go ahead with your minor league career, take our money, then we will take 10% of every big league contract that you sign. It's right there in writing. It is a simple business transaction. Fernando Tatis grew up into a star major league player, signed a $340 million deal. The quick math means that Big League Advance gets $34 million. And Fernando Tatis Jr. said, hold on, I don't love my plan. Therefore, I'm going to sue them, and I'm going to say that they used predatory practices to secure loans from idiots. And I'm going to get lawyers to agree with me in California, because there's a law in California that says, correctly so, you can't really go out there and do anything illegal and try to lend money to people who are unsophisticated using certain methods that would be deemed or could be deemed by a jury as predatory in nature. Tatis was pretty simple about why he's filing this lawsuit, except it's a total misdirection. He said, I'm fighting this battle not just for myself. Side note, when you write that you're doing something not just for you, but for others, you really are doing it just for you. So you don't really need to say that, but it's okay. I'm fighting this battle not just for myself, but for, well, hold on. If he's not fighting it for himself, then he'll donate the proceeds if he wins, right? Okay. I'm fighting this battle not just for myself, but for everyone still chasing their dream and hoping to provide a better life for their family. Stop it right there, Coca. That's what Big League Advance is. You go and give minor leaguers money because do you know how hard it is to make money in the big leagues? The overwhelming majority of minor leaguers, like 99.9% of them, will not be Fernando Tatis. The whole purpose of Big League Advance is that they find people and they try to find the Tatis, because that's how you pay for all the schleps who don't become Tatis, who you've given $2 million to, who turn out to be nothing and have no payment back for Big League Advance. You may think that I'm defending Big League Advance. I am defending a company that is very open about what their plan is, and players do not have to sign with them. It's pretty simple, actually. If you want money because you want better rent or better apartment or you want better food and some of the other ridiculousness that Tatis talked about back in 2018 when he took $2 million cash, now he's the son of a big leaguer. Don't make the argument that he was rich because Fernando Tatis Sr. was his dad. I assume that Tatis Sr. had spent his money as well as he should. He made about $17 million in his career. And as you know, half his taxes, maybe spent $10 million on homes, cars, and various other things. But anyway, Tatis gets an opportunity to get $2 million to help his training, help his career, eyes wide open. Predatory? Tatis literally knew the deal. Give me $2 million today, and then I'll give you 10% of anything later. Still the odds, as good as Tatis was, to make $20 million in a baseball career. That's more than Fernando Tatis made in his entire career, the dad, who had 2 Grand Slams in 1 inning, who was traded. I traded for Tatis, loved having him, great bat, small guy, but strong and funny and interesting as a teammate. 17 million total. So to make 20, tough. So the math is that Big League Advance is hoping that for everyone they give $2 million to, that somebody, like 1 out of, 16 of them will get a $340 million payday. Think about the math of that business before you invest in Big League Advance and think that it's such a huge advantage to the company and not to the player. How many players make $340 million in a contract or a career? If you give $2 million to 17 players, you're only breaking even if one of those 17 makes it. And for you to have the ability to pinpoint which of those players and to maximize the return on investment for your company, then you have to have the best scouts in the world. You have to have the best decision-making process of how much money to give to a particular player. Some players you may give 20 grand to and hope that they get called up one time for like 2 weeks. Some players you give 100 grand to and say, hey, if that player can make $1 million, we'll get our money back. But Big League Advance is in the business of making money. So the problem with the lawsuit is that what Fernando Tatis is arguing, that he wants to protect young players who don't yet know how to protect themselves. We're not talking about Busconis in the Dominican Republic. We're not talking about people who are breaking the law and taking advantage of children. Big League Advance is a fund, a regulated fund that is basically, it's like investing in something that's going for gold, or investing in something that's trying to change the semiconductor world, or trying to populate Mars, or you are doing a speculative investment where it's very clear by Big League Advance, hey, when you invest with us, we're going to give money to players and we're not going to get it right often. But when we do, our projections show that we can make money. Do you remember that there was a player, and the player's name was Francisco, and I'm going to absolutely spell it wrong here. Mejia. Thank you, Coca. Mejia. He tried this as well. He sued BLA in 2018, and he said there were unconscionable tactics that were used by BLA to get him to give up 10% of his earnings. Why do you think he dropped the case? What are the unconscionable tactics? Is it going in and saying to the player, you're going to do this, I swear to God, you're going to do this? Or is it the opposite? Are the unconscionable tactics saying to a former future big leaguer's son, saying, oh, you have no chance to make it. You stink. You're the worst player I've ever seen. We'll give you $2 million just for S's and G's because we feel like it. But we're not going to see this money. We're like buying lottery tickets. What's unconscionable? The guy who started this is someone named Michael Schwimmer. He pitched for the Phillies, and he's the president and CEO. And he actually had an interesting take on the company, that he wants to help minor leaguers get some money in their pockets. Because do you know what happens to the majority of minor league players? They don't make the big leagues. They go on to doing whatever it is they're going to do in life. They don't have to give the money back. That's the unconscionable tactic. Now, you'd be amazed that I'm taking the side of a company like this, when often I wouldn't actually. But when I look at a lawsuit like what Tatis is offering, and he hires someone to be his lawyer, a former California state senator, his name is Robert Hertzberg. He finds him. It's a totally purposeful hire. And he's one of the members of the big team representing Tatis. When Tatis realized, I don't want to give these guys $34 million. I'll give him back the $2 million, no problem. That wasn't part of the deal, buddy boy. But what they're leaning on is that California lawmakers, and this is what Hertzberg said, the lawyer, have put in place serious, straightforward protections against predatory financial activity. Let me give you an example of predatory financial activity. You knock on a door in a bad part of town, and you say that you are an insurance company that is going to insure against the death of your child or the destruction of your property by gunfire. And you say, all you have to do is give me $1,000 in cash right now, and I promise you, you will have an insurance policy that should someone croak, you'll get $1 million. Well, that's an unconscionable tactic used to take advantage of someone. And by the way, you're lying. Predatory activities are when you take advantage of people who don't have the ability to discern what's real and what's not for what's right and what's wrong. And there is no legislature in the country that protects against stupidity. There is no legislature in the country that protects against bad investment decisions. They will protect you if you made that bad investment decision with your eyes completely closed. But sometimes the judicial branch will say, your eyes may have been closed, my friend, but they should have been open. It was very clear to you when you signed this deal what you were signing. Taking money today and being upset when you have to pay it later is the essence of taking money today. I've spoken to you about what it is to take upfront TV money, what it is to take money against your house, against other collateral that you own. The thing about getting money is you gotta give it back. When a bank lends it to you, when an investment institution lends you money, you gotta pay it back. When someone gives you a piece of paper that has dollars on it, what better example in the music business? How many times have young bands said, oh my God, I can't believe how much I signed away? And what the record label says is, we do this speculatively with 100 different bands. You just happen to be the band who made it, but you were completely on your arse when we signed you, and you certainly loved the signing bonus, didn't you? Or a book advance. This happens in so many different industries in so many different ways. There is nothing to see here with this lawsuit. Tatis is seeking an injunctive relief for what? What's the emergency? Because he's getting paid by the Padres and has to turn over money to big league advance? It is going to be very quick when they are in front of a court in California, because the threshold questions that will be asked, was Tatis there when it was signed? Was he represented by an attorney when it was signed? I'm sorry, Coca, that I'm not being more sympathetic to Tatis here. And this is not an you know how much I love his father. This is not about that. This is about trying to fix an issue where people feel wronged when they've made bad decisions. I don't agree with the ability or with the need to have everybody a winner. There are decisions that you make that have consequences. There are decisions and actions that you take that matter. And if we use the courts to try to blame someone every time we make a bad deal or a bad decision, then what is the incentive to ever make a good deal or a good decision? There's literally a lack of incentive. Oh, if I screw it up, I'll take care of it later. What a great thing as a president of a team. If I could screw up a trade and a signing and say, no problem, I get a mulligan every time. I get the money back that I wasted on a player. I can designate anybody I want, no problem, save the money. I get it back. A refund. Only upside. What a great world that Tatis wants us to live in, where there's only upside. Take the $2 million now, and if I'm good, don't worry, I won't have to pay it back or pay the 10% of my future earnings. But man, I got to eat better food in a great apartment. The other side of this discussion is worth talking about. And I want to address it, please. There is a train of thought and a school of people who believe that what BLA is doing is dealing only with Latin players and Latin American players. Ellie De La Cruz is an example. He signed with BLA. The thought is that a majority of players who are doing this are Latin American, and that Tatis Jr. is worried that it is being targeted. I guess I could argue that what Nestle does is targeting women, saying your breast milk is not good enough, therefore have your babies have Nestle formula, which is why when I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to have Nestle's Crunch, for crying out loud, a full Nestle boycott over their practices. And I understood intellectually what was going on in my house. I understood why that boycott was happening, because the thought was there were underserved, underrepresented, not educated people who were being told something that forced them to spend money where they otherwise wouldn't have. And actually, in theory, the health of the baby can suffer. I can get that. When you've got a product that is better marketed to one demographic than another, for whatever reason, the definition of going after your target market does not make the way you're doing it and the result of what you've done predatory in nature. Is it true that Latin American players generally have very poor upbringings, are learning to play baseball with holes in their shoes, if they've got shoes at all, with barely a glove on their hand, still getting grounders, hard hit to shortstop, able to field them without a glove? I've seen it. Is it true that they want to sign contracts earlier so that they can help their families? Absolutely true. Is it true that we would offer young Latin players certainty through arbitration and offer less money than they're worth because we believe that they and their family needed the money more? Yes, that's true. Did we do it to white kids or black kids who were American who also didn't come from money? Yes, that's true. That's called taking advantage of a market inefficiency. It's called understanding your landscape and figuring out what is the best way. What's the best way to sell the tickets, Coca? Right courtside at the Knicks games or right behind the plate for Mets games, your beloved Citi Field? Why is it those tickets are so expensive and they're not marketed to people whose income is 50 grand? They're marketed to people whose income is 10 million and above. Is that predatory? Is that taking an action against poorer people because you're only looking at rich people to buy a certain product? We market all the time to the demographic that we think is the demographic that will want this product. It is absolutely normal. And to argue otherwise is to try to pull at the heartstrings when there are kids like Tatis who have something or nothing. They take the money and then hit it big and regret the fact that they have to give any part of that to someone who bet on them. What Coca is saying, and I don't know if this is in the chat, Coca, nothing personal with David Samson. We're live on YouTube and we're on DraftKings Network. It's about 20 minutes after the hour right now. You're telling me that when I say market inefficiency, that's my way as a businessman of covering up for predatory behavior? Boy, you guys, you kids have a lot to learn, Coca. All of you. Market inefficiency. I'm sorry, is that not what you all do every day? Whether you're day trading, whether you're in the market, whether you're doing trading memorabilia, buying or selling. I was just at that fan fest. All they're doing is buying and selling cards. All they're doing is looking for market inefficiencies. Everyone invested in equities is looking for market inefficiencies. Hold on, let me give it a thought. Oh yeah. Everyone who invests in fixed income is looking for market inefficiencies. That is exactly what you're supposed to do. And the people who succeed are those who can identify. What do you think analytics is in both sports and finance? Just throwing it out there. Any idea what the programs that are being coded and devised, whether it's by AI or smart kids out of Harvard and Yale, what is it that they're searching for? Market inefficiencies in order to take advantage of something that is and shouldn't be and will be what you think it is going to become. And then you make money. When you break the law, I am very clear where I stand on this. Wander Franco is in a Dominican courtroom right now trying to decide what he's going to do when he's behind bars for anywhere between a day and 5 years. The reason why Wander Franco is thinking about this is the trial against Wander Franco is coming to an end. Wander Franco is that phenomenal player for the Tampa Bay Rays who signed that huge deal and then all of a sudden was being investigated for abuse of a underage girl or having an underage girlfriend or sex with someone who's underage. And it became this whole thing where the mother was making money because Franco was paying the mother and the mother was sort of trafficking her daughter to Wander Franco and others. That whole case, it's coming to an end. And a ruling is going to be made this week on whether Wander Franco goes to jail in the Dominican. The prosecution asked for 5 years for what he did. Remember, it was sexual abuse. She was 14 at the time. The prosecutors basically spent their time trying to prove two things. Hey, he had a relationship with this girl, 14, had sex with this girl, 14. Oh, and by the way, he kept transferring large sums of money to the girl's mother. Now, just because you pay someone's mother doesn't mean that you're taking advantage of the daughter. It doesn't mean that he was aware or should have been aware that she was 14. It doesn't mean that she was trafficked. Doesn't mean he did anything wrong or physically or mentally abused her. But it doesn't not mean it. The thing about the Dominican Republic is that when they're asking for Wander Franco to get 5 years, it's the Tampa Bay Rays who are far more interested in the result of this case than even the girl's mother, who is now trying to step back. Oh, I got no money. I did nothing wrong. He did nothing wrong. It's all good in the hood. Wander Franco was a great catch once upon a time as a young man. Not such a great catch anymore. Wander Franco has little chance of playing in the big leagues again. Wander Franco has an even smaller chance of being able to enforce the contract that he signed with Tampa. That contract is going to get terminated the minute he's convicted of a felony, the minute he serves time after conviction. That'll be the end of it. The Rays have simply been waiting for the right time to terminate the contract. As you recall, he's been on administrative leave. Remember, administrative leave in MLB is you still get paid. But Wander Franco's contract is just beginning to get good. It was that long-term huge contract that builds up because he was so young when he signed it. The process here will be that he will get sentenced on Thursday. Then the league will file an application with the union after Tampa moves to terminate his contract under provisions of the guarantee clause, which mentions in general, whatever you're going to do, try not to get convicted of a felony if you can. And it would be super amazing if you didn't go to prison. We'd like you not to skydive. We'd like you not to play racquetball. We'd like you not to play pickup basketball. But really what we'd like is try to stay out of the clink. And so when you moved him after the beginning from administrative leave to the restricted list, it stopped any flow of payments. On the administrative leave where you start is when you get paid. Remember that whole thing with Bauer? And then when you move him to restricted with an agreement by baseball, all flow of funds stop, but the contract itself has not been terminated. That changes this week. Wait to see is when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, great. If not, fine. Wander Franco's contract is going to get terminated. And that will be the end. You will not hear one thing from him because not one other team, even after he's still young and gets out of prison, which he will. How old is he, Coca? Is he 24 yet? 25? He will not be past the end of his career when he gets out, if he gets the full 5 years, but done. Nobody will pay. So he'll be 29 years old out of prison. It's actually a sad case, Coca, what happened to Wander Franco. People may not even remember. It's been so many years. So talented, so good. the Rays, a small market team, were lauded. And this is where you and I get into a disagreement. There are more examples, and we may get to one later in the show, where you're just signing players and they're not good. You have to designate them, or something happens, you pay them and their performance is not what you expected. It's really hard to hit it right on any player, even an established free agent. But a young player, it's even harder. It's even harder when you go down to the minor league level like big league advance. In baseball, it's not like basketball, where we're going to see a draft tomorrow where the top picks in the draft hit it way more often than they don't. If you only hit it on 50% of your draft picks in NFL or NBA, you're fired. In baseball, if 50% of your draft picks make it to the big leagues, you're a hero. You get a raise. You could even make 7 figures. It's just a difficult process. And it's why when you are allocating your resources and thinking about the best way to search for a market inefficiency, you may be willing to sign a bunch of the young guys because when you hit it right. That's only when you were getting a discount. That's the market inefficiency. That's why you give players, young players, guaranteed money before they've earned it or before they need to get it, because you believe you're getting a discount. In this day and age, without a discount, teams are just getting burned left, right, and center. All right, we come back. We're going to review Deep Cover, as I told you we would. And then we're going to talk about the groundbreaking in Vegas. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It is David Samson coming at you live every day, 7 to 9 a.m. We'll talk about sports, culture, entertainment, politics. Thank you for downloading, subscribing, going to the YouTube channel. We're live right now. If you can guess the word of the day, which we start every show with, you'll get some free merch. Not sure that anyone guessed predatory today, but if they did, Coca, our esteemed producer, will tell me. Someone guessed predatory? This is live. But a 3-time champion. The same guy's won it 3 times. Wait, is this a relative of mine? Is this someone like inside Llewyn Davis? All right, let's start a segment right now. The review. The review is a movie that I told you I'd review yesterday called Deep Cover. I said I'd watch it, and I did. I do love Orlando Bloom because I will always be partial to Elizabethtown in a way that generally will make you uncomfortable. But I love him and that movie. Bryce Dallas Howard, I love her and her husband. This movie, however, sadly, did not do it for me. Now, it's rated relatively highly, and it was entertaining. It's about 3 people, and it also stars Nick Muhammad, I believe is his name, who was the coach. He was the equipment manager for Ted Lasso's team and then became the coach of the other team and then had a reunion when he came back. And I think he's in Ted Lasso season 4. But the 3 of them, for whatever reason, are trying to act. They're trying to do improv. And they get hired by Sean Bean, who may or may not be a cop, to infiltrate and go undercover in major drug rings. And it's supposed to be a comedy, but every time I see Orlando Bloom trying to overact for a character that's supposed to overact, or I watch Bryce Dallas Howard flutter her beautiful eyelashes, I realize they're trying to overcome a script that puts the M in mediocre. The story puts the S in suspend disbelief. The violence puts the ew in ew. Deep Cover is fine. It's, you know what? If you're taking a plane, watch Deep Cover. Download it. I'll give you that. Or if you got a long drive and you're the passenger seat, fine. I'll give you that. But to allocate an hour and a half or an hour 40 of your day when you could be not trapped doing something outside, playing tennis, running, whatever, nope. It's a skipper. Tomorrow, I'm going to review a movie, and I promise you it will be watched today, called Dean Spanley. One of you, I love when you get at me at David P. Samson on X or at davidsamsonpodcast.com. You can reach me via email while you're checking out the new logoed merch that we have. One of you said that you wanted me to watch. This is the new mug that I'm showing you. If you're listening to this, then you don't see it. But if you go to davidsamsonpodcast.com, then you would see it. One of you said, please watch Dean Spanley. I'd never heard of it. And a movie with Sam Neill that I've never heard of. I am in like, and Peter O'Toole, I am in like Flynn. So I'll review that tomorrow. I loved groundbreaking for Marlins Park. It was 1,000 degrees that day in July in 2009. I remember preparing for it, making all the shovels with signatures of the people who would have them, doing a run of show where we had Charlie Huff throw a ball to Benito Santiago, recreating the first pitch in Marlins history and having them throw sort of the first pitch at New Marlins Ballpark. We called it New Marlins Ballpark at that time because we thought we'd have a naming rights deal certainly before opening day in 2012. The reason why it was called Marlins Park is we never got that naming rights deal, never got what we thought was right, didn't want to settle for $6, $7, $8, or $9 million a year. We wanted 20. We thought that New Marlins Park was going to be an absolute success, that it would be not full, but we projected averaging 25 to 30,000 people. We projected huge growth in ticket revenue, huge growth in F&B. We projected parking lots to be full. We sent baseball projections completely approved. We sent baseball, the plan for the ballpark, completely approved. The baseball side, the business side, they look at everything. We sent baseball our payroll projections. We sent baseball our revenue sharing projections, showing that if Marlins Park works the way we expected it to, New Marlins Ballpark, then we will not be a ward of the state, that we would be revenue sharing neutral at worst. Baseball saw these pro formas, and however askance they looked at them, to my face, they said, this is approved. Go get that ballpark built. The reason why it didn't work is manyfold in Miami. I could say that it's never worked in Miami under any owner, and the fans could say we've never had an owner with deep pockets. That's not true. You've had two owners with hugely deep pockets, Wayne Huizenga, John Henry. We've never had an ownership group that really wanted to invest in the team, that really wanted to invest in the community, that really would keep a team together. All the narratives that exist. The reason why the narratives exist is that it didn't work. If it had worked and we had won, those narratives, poof, disappear. The Oklahoma, 4869. The Oakland A's, the Sacramento Aths, and the Las Vegas Athletics would like you to believe that everything is perfectly fine. Don't worry that we didn't do groundbreaking exactly outside. We did it inside because it's HOTT in Vegas. We know this. The commissioner, Rob Manfred, was more than happy to get on a plane with his people, land in Vegas, do a quick there and back to participate in the groundbreaking. The groundbreaking is meant to signify the start of construction. I told you it's performative in nature. It's on a timeline only when people in the public and the governor, his schedule, the commissioner's schedule, you find a day. It's like picking a day to go out to dinner with long-lost friends who have different schedules and kids of different ages. Difficult to do. But they settled on June 23rd, having nothing to do with the construction timeline. And everyone there acknowledged that there's no problems here. This ballpark will be built in a 31-month span, will be open for 2028 opening day. No problem. The financing of the ballpark, no problem. In writing, no problem. Not yet. We're getting there. Relocation agreement, done. Go read it. Development agreement, done. Go read it. You need the construction agreements. Yes, you do. You also need the design documents. Then you need the construction documents. Because before you get any of that, there's a small problem with the plan in Vegas. No one knows what the hell the ballpark's going to cost. And the more they spoke at that groundbreaking, the more I believed that they are so uber focused on a day that they're not realizing the deleterious impact it has on your budget. There's a reason the budget is up $250 million since it was first announced, and it's not just tariffs. There's a reason why they can't tell you what the final budget will be, because they haven't decided what the final budget will be. Generally, you take all the money you have, and that becomes your final budget. If you have the ability to have $515 million, then that's how much the ballpark costs. We designed a ballpark in Miami. We then had that ballpark priced from soup to nuts. And then we had a price. And then we said that price is too much. Let's adjust X, Y, Z, or A. And then we'll lock that in. And we didn't lock it in contractually. We locked it in with me and Claude Delorme and Michel Boussier and other superstars who were there every day making sure that we were not over budget, making sure that the subs and the workers were doing their jobs, overseeing the project in a way that would give me night sweats to this day about all the risks inherent in a construction job this big, and knowing that we had zero latitude to have overages. Zero. John Fisher right now is looking for the money to figure out the ballpark at its current state. If there is leakage in price of any kind, it's not going to come from the public. Nevada's given $380 million maximum, done. I would not, personally, and maybe this is what made me unpopular in the public or popular, it doesn't matter to me. If you're giving $380 million of public money that's not really coming out of firefighters or teachers, when you look at the specifics of the stream of revenue, where it's coming from, how they're bonding that stream of revenue to get money up front to put into the ballpark project, and you're doing such a small percentage, do you get equal time? Think about a major league team or any team that you know of where there are majority investors. They're the face of the investment. And then you've got a bunch of limited partners. Those limited partners are forced to buy season tickets. Those limited partners don't get field access. They don't get clubhouse access. Those limited partners basically are so limited, they are subject only to CPT, coffee party talking, where you get to say you're a limited partner. The public in this case is a very limited partner. If the team is on the hook for the balance above $380 million, I remember that we had to stand side by side, Coca, with those county commissioners and city commissioners and the mayor. There were like 12 of us. I don't have a picture here, Coca, I don't think, but there's pictures all over of Marlins groundbreaking. All the people that we were with, because they all had stakes in the deal because they were giving more public money. The A's brought a bunch of people, bunch of political people, as a thank you for their 380. My view is they could have been thanked by letter with some sort of outfield wall sign in the bottom of the third inning for 40 times a year. Some sort of deal they could have done, but groundbreaking is your moment. And John Fisher shared the moment with people. What did he say? First, Rob gets up there and says, I'll be back in Vegas. I'm going to be back here. But I'll tell you one thing for certain. This is Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball. I will be here opening day 2028 to celebrate with John Fisher, his entire team, and I hope the entire state of Nevada. A couple problems with that quote. One, if the entire state of Nevada comes to the game, they're going to run out of seats. It's a very small venue, but we'll get past that. The reason why you can't tell anyone for certain that the ballpark will open in 2028 is you have no idea whether the timeline can be met. You have no idea when the financing will be in place for construction to start. And on top of that, you have no idea if there's a willingness by the team to have overruns in order to make that opening day in 2028, when they have to do an extra shift, spend extra money on labor in order to condense the regular timing of construction. As it is, when they give you their milestones, which was a funny document that someone sent me on X at David P. Samson, stadium documents, construction documents, design development documents, it's so thick, we're talking like really thick, really long. So thick and long that you look at it and say, I don't think I can manage this. And then you do, one day at a time. But there is no way that I would have told you in July of 2009 that we were going to open in March of 2012. We were scheduled. We was aspirational. But so much can happen during the course of construction. You could have a construction accident, God forbid. You can have a weather issue that slows down the timing. And if you get the timing wrong, then you're really screwed, because then you've got subs who are coming in to do stuff after a wall's painted, and then it's got to be repainted because the subs screwed around by putting an outlet in or a drawer or a shelf. It's like a ballet. It's a beautiful ballet building a ballpark where you are conducting the orchestra, watching people dance in a way that just feels good. Now, they've got tights on, I grant you, but they're getting a job done. Certain. The people at the A's hired, he had a great quote. Remember the president for Allegiant for the Raiders? He's now the president for the A's. And so he built a ballpark in Vegas already, stadium. Now he's going to build this ballpark. I wanted to just say this quote that he said because it made me smile. And I know people, I've known John Fisher forever, for decades. I know people who've worked for John Fisher, and it's all good. But it's just funny. It's going to be a great moment for the Fisher family, said Mark, the new president of the A's. They have taken a lot of unfair abuse. And when you get to know John and the rest of the family, they're just generous, caring, wonderful, authentic people. And similar to the Raiders, they're not in it for the money. I think people make that mistake. They're doing this for the right reasons. Yikes. Isn't doing it for the money the right reason? Nothing. Personal pick of the day. Nope. No animation on that. We are 84-84. We had two things. Corbin Day. Nailed it. The Orioles crushed the Rangers. We won that one. I thought Eduardo Rodriguez would not pitch well, and we had the White Sox in the first 5 innings. I believe the Diamondbacks were up 8 or 9-0. Did Corbin Carroll fracture his wrist in that game, or has he fractured it in a previous game? Either way, the Diamondbacks took care of the White Sox, which is why we split and why we're 84-84. I want to talk and tell you that the A's, the Aths, are having trouble this season. One of the things John Fisher talked about during the groundbreaking was the excitement of building the team, how it can take longer than you think, how it's harder than you think, building a stadium, longer, harder, etc. The plan always has to be that you're building a winner that they peak the first year of a new ballpark. That's what you're trying to do. You want to win in 25, like 74 games. In 26, you'd like to get to 81. In 27, you'd like to get to 88 and miss the playoffs by about a game. And then you are lined up for 28 when you want to make that window shine and bust your way through it. Whether or not the A's are going to be able to do it, it won't be with Luis Severino, who signed only a 3-year deal that will keep him in Sacramento. And by the time they open in Las Vegas in 28, he will have been a free agent again. He's pitching against the best pitcher in baseball, Skubal. The reason why we're taking the Aths and Severino is that a number one starter for the Aths is really a number four starter, Severino. But plus 238, DraftKings odds subject to change, that seems like way too rich. Skubal, while he generally gives up no runs or one run, I think the Aths get to him. I think they're so excited about groundbreaking and so behind Fisher and the rest of the team that they are going to do it. Game 7 ratings came in for the NBA. I wasn't really thinking about that. You've heard me talk about ratings as not being that important, actually. The TV deals were done with the NBA with no care in the world. It's just what is reported in the media. They announced Game 7 ratings, and they started comparing it, and Game 7 saved the day. Game 7's always save the day. People always love winner-take-all games, winner-go-home games, March Madness, the whole package. I don't know if you saw yesterday, Colin Cowherd went public on his show saying that he would love it if the NBA would cut some playoff games because you've got too many games and too many people are getting injured. Yes, it's true that Tyrese Halliburton tore his Achilles. Yes, it's true he came out yesterday and said that he would do it all again. Of course he would, just like we talked about on yesterday's show. But the thought that we're going to have fewer injuries if you play fewer games and that the NBA will go to their broadcast partners and say, love you, man, but we'd like to do 5-game series instead of 7. It was the funniest thing I heard on the air yesterday. There is no chance, toilet pants, in the world that the NBA will move back to 5-game series. Wouldn't be surprised if they moved to best of 9 in order to get more chance of opportunities for these TV networks and streamers to make their money back. But the playoffs will not be getting shortened. But Game 7 ratings are always going to outperform. And it always makes for a great press release. And so it makes for the NBA to be able to compare and show all the things that the NBA Game 7 did. And it makes us go and try to say, well, wait a minute. More people watch the Kentucky Derby. That's true. More people watched Game 5 Dodgers-Yankees, World Series. That's true. More people watched the SEC Football Championship. That's true. But guess what? When you're comparing it to the NBA, compare like to like. I never liked, ever, being involved in a situation where baseball was being compared to football, as an example. Of course, our biggest Game 7 is going to be outdrawn by a random Sunday in October in the NFL. And yes, that makes me despondent, as well as everyone in the rooms where it happens within MLB. But it's like me saying, man, wouldn't it be great to be 6'9"? Yeah, it would be great. Just give me another 1.4 inches and I could dunk and be a professional player. But I can't. Am I going to sit around all day despondent? No, I'm going to note it and then I'm going to move on. So the ratings for Game 7, of course, were better. The NBA is rooting for Game 7s for that very reason. A, PR, you can spin it, but B, the TV networks don't have to be made whole. There's no make goods. They get their 7-game series for their ad runs and for general brand awareness and number of shows in the top 100. So it all worked out completely except for Indiana and Tyrese. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to have an opportunity to have a special guest because it's Tuesday and we have guests on Tuesday. We'll be back with Mike Berland after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. It's hour 2 on this Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. When we went to 2 hours, we wanted to have guests twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I was hoping to find the most interesting people in order to bring them to you each week. And we did it this week today. I'm not going to take another minute before you get to put your eyes and ears on Mike Berland. We have him on today, coincidentally, because he has a book coming out, but that's not why we wanted him. Even though we're going to promo the book called Not About Golf, The Life-Changing Joy of Playing the Game. This is the most interesting person because of the things he's done. Mike Berland, welcome to Nothing Personal. Thank you for being with me.
It's my pleasure. And if they say it's nothing personal, then we know it's all personal.
Well, no, it's actually nothing personal, but it is personal with you.
Yeah.
Because we've wanted to have someone on who not only writing about golf, which we can talk about golf all day if you want, but some of the things that you're doing and have done, sort of the different approaches to life that you've taken, very involved in politics, very involved, and then trying to be involved in golf in a way that can relate to people who don't play golf at all. What made you decide? How did you decide to get into the business of trying to inform people how to spend their time reading a book about not golf?
Well, I had started enjoying golf late in life. I was not a golfer growing up. I basically lived in Chicago. I lived next to golf courses, but I didn't think it was for me. I was swimming, I was playing water polo, I was doing other sports. And it wasn't until I started to work, and I was on a 24/7 work schedule for 2 or 3 years, and I got to the point where I needed to take a vacation. And the vacation was a very foreign subject to me. I'd never taken one in my whole life, and I had to go. And I went down to Florida, and my stepfather, who was a golfer, put a golf club in my hand and said, just try it. And it was a big driver called the Whale, and I hit it, and boom, it took off. And golf opened up hitting that ball opened up a huge perspective of here's something I could do. I could enjoy being outside, being with my friends, and being with family. So in my 20s, I started to golf, and I would make games, and I would meet people, and I'd do business on the golf course. And it was really working out for me, and I was happy to do it. But I thought that I was really one of the few people who was going through this. Fast forward 20 years, I do trend research. I look at things that are up, down, and next. I know when things have momentum and they lose momentum. And I saw that during the pandemic, golf had this huge momentum with more women playing, with more young people playing. The favorability of golf was shooting through the roof. I was like, where are all these golfers coming from? Because it wasn't coming from golf professionals. Professional golf is probably at the most strange moment I've ever seen it with PGA and LIV, and they can't sort of figure out what their tour is. So this is grassroots golf. And as a pollster and as a momentum master, I knew there was something up. So there's millions of people coming into golf. Who's going to explain it to them? So who's going to explain the rules, the games, the etiquette, and make it less intimidating? And that's my book.
But it's not really golf for dummies.
No.
So that's not
at all.
I just want to be clear when people are buying this that it's actually lessons and things about life that you can get through golf and things you can accomplish. Now, I'm not a golfer at all, but I did get to go for Jeff Conine's 50th birthday, who is a former player of mine. I got to go to where is St. Andrews? Scotland?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good one to start with.
We did 5 rounds in 4 days.
Yeah.
Like this is the 12th hole at Crail on June 30th, and I parred the 12th hole. So I kept the ball.
Yeah, I keep that one.
Amazing. And I had to buy golf clothes, and I had to make up that I'd played a bunch of rounds because otherwise you can't play St. Andrews. Right. So I made all of that up and then went golfing. And I got to tell you, I didn't learn any life lessons.
You're with your guys. You learn how to go together. You learned how to be straight and not cheat. You learned the order. You learned about the other people who are with you. Did they get frustrated? Did they throw their club? Were they just hanging out? You do learn by the 12th hole of golf. You can see deep into someone's soul, and you know a lot about them because if you're golfing for 4 hours, 240 minutes. 230 of those minutes are chit chat. you're only golfing for 10 minutes. So for the other 2:30, you're finding out about the people you're with. You're finding out about the place that you're golfing.
What about, so obviously you couldn't do this deep dive into water polo because
No,
it's hard to
you're
have
trying to
conversations.
trying to kill the opponent, like drown them.
So that there's
That
that.
doesn't, yeah.
And what about running? What about,
Uh,
so I like running. I've run maybe 25 or 30 marathons. You can find about a lot about people at mile 18.
you can find, yeah, you can find out what they're made of. You can find out. By the way, I've done 3 Ironman triathlons, so I'm into endurance sports.
Do you
You
have the
can't.
tattoo, Mike?
No, you know what? I made a bold move that when I became an Ironman, I was not going to conform. And I said I don't need to be branded to be an Ironman, and so I did not do the tattoo. But I was I think on the early wave of the non-tattoo. They had just sold out to the Chinese. Ironman went through. I just sold the Ironman franchise to a brand in China, and I thought I just didn't want that branding.
What year did you do Ironman?
2015, 2016, 2015, 17, and 18.
So I did one in 2006. I branded myself
You
immediately.
Of course, you absolutely should have.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Since then, I've just done marathons and ultra marathons. But you can learn a lot about someone doing an Ironman with them too. I'm just fascinated with golf because some people view golf as not accessible. And when you look at what your experience is and the consulting work you've done and the things you've done, I mean, just think about your access to people.
Right.
And whether it's Clinton or Bloomberg or all the different things you've done, Dixie Chicks, which I want to get to,
Oh my
that's
God, the
not
Dixie Chicks.
normal access. And so how do you expect, or how do I speak to the audience who may not be able to relate to the lessons you're trying to impart?
But the lessons that I impart are with my friends and with my family. And it comes up in conversation sometimes. Do you golf? And sometimes it's an invitation to come with me to golf. I did golf with Mayor Bloomberg, but because he was a passionate golfer and I was a passionate golfer, we were about the same level. And it was a fantastic time to get away from Mike being mayor and to Mike just being golfer. And we talked about issues and we talked about things that were ahead of us. And it actually created a very chill environment for us. Now, I also golf with my neighbor. My favorite person to golf with is my wife. And there's a lot of love on the golf course. So I think the idea though is to be on the golf course, you need to be a great golfer. You need to, have a 5 handicap. Do you know that half of golf right now is being played in simulators? In those screens where you hit up in the 3-dimensional and they track your ball. That's where half of the young people are golfing. 17 million, and they go to 5-iron in New York City or other cities. They hit the ball during the week, and then on the weekend they go play a muni outside.
But isn't that the same? That's gamers. Isn't that the world that we're in? Is that so much of life is happening in simulators, and because that's the access you can get.
Yeah, but then on the weekends they go out. That's the difference. We call them dualies, and they play half inside, half outside. But don't tell them that they're not golfing all the time because they're using the same equipment. Even on a dual situation, they're playing the same courses. The technology is so good. They're getting feedback. It's a sensation of golf, and it translates right outside. And Gen Zers are going on dates to play golf because they can, they have to talk and they have to interact, and she can find out if he's a good guy, and he can find out if she played him. It's a wonderful it's a wonderful way to see character.
So are we going to stick with the story that everything you need to know about someone you can find out on the golf course?
Oh, I will give you that one. I will take that. I will cut this out of this and I will blast it out. I would say that most things you need to know, you can find out on the golf course.
Forget kindergarten. We've totally changed it. It's now everything you need to learn and need to know. That's how we need to figure out forget the apps. Just take someone golfing and you can see compatibility.
Yeah, you know what? It wouldn't be a bad test. You definitely will get a good sense of their personality, or if you ever want to be with them again.
You never fight with your wife on the golf course when you golf with her?
No, she's super chill, and somehow she calms me down. Like, she has low expectations of me, and I fulfill them, and so we are fine.
I want to talk about consulting because I did a show with John Skipper. It's called The Sporting Class and Pablo Torre. And I'm not a big fan of consultants. I believe that they charge a lot of money hourly to tell me something that I already know, and I just need to have someone else say to prove to the board that what I know is right. And so there's a lot of confirmation bias. But I also understand that political consultants, it is a critical part of strategy.
Yeah.
And I would assume when you are doing consulting for let's start as your strategic advisor for Michael Bloomberg and Hilary Clinton, are you blazing the path for them, or are you helping them with the path that they say they want to be on, making that path successful?
They have to have a vision. They have to know, they have to have some core values of where they're going. And then you're helping them get there. And so I can tell you in winning campaigns and in losing campaigns, because both of those candidates have had winning and losing campaigns, what allowed them to win and then what hurt them. For being in a campaign, you are one of 5 parts. There's the pollster, there's the ops guy, there's the treasurer. There's a lot of people who have to come together to bring a candidate's vision forward. And voters can seek out if you're doing it in an authentic or inauthentic way. And so the issues is finding a message that addresses an issue that resonates with voters and will get them to vote. And then having that momentum build so that you're at the top on election day. If you go to Hilary Clinton, she's had 3 major elections I've worked on. 2000, she becomes senator of New York, no problem. 2006, reelected, no problem. She's ready to run for president, measuring the drapes in the White House. She's going to win. Barack Obama comes out of nowhere, and with a yes we can, a positive progressive message. Hillary's too far right, he's too far left. It's a change election. Obama wins. Fast forward to 2016. Here's Hillary again. Again, she's favorite. She's running against Donald Trump. She's a hard and tough message. She's tacking left. Trump's tacking right. He's resonating. Hillary's sort of peaking like middle of September. Trump is sort of peaking on election day. He wins. I mean, that's why I told you momentum is so important to what I do. Getting your momentum to peak at the right time is often the key to success. I'm sure it's the key to success for your sports teams. You don't want to win early.
We used to say in baseball in the clubhouse that momentum is only as good as tomorrow's starting pitcher.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we talk about is momentum is so important. You see it with different runs. You feel it's very hard to articulate what momentum is. And it's sort of like the Supreme Court talking about pornography. I can't define it, but I can tell you when I see it. And it's a very famous thing. Momentum to me is that way, but you found a way and find a way to articulate it. And I've never been able to do that in the sports business.
So that in my previous book before this called Maximum Momentum, I created an algorithm using social media analytics to quantify momentum. And it was deadly accurate to the point that brands could not believe it. I could tell your brand was going to be popular and to have a high sell-through 6 months before it was happening, because I could see that it had velocity, which means it was moving, but it was low mass. So momentum is mass times velocity. So a low mass, high velocity is going to be a huge winner. It can take a little time, but it's going to happen. This is what I saw with golf. Golf was low mass, high velocity after the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, the mass was growing and the velocity was taking off. And I'm like, where is this coming from? And then I saw it's highest with people under 30 and with women and with people of color. And it's happening, and it hasn't dropped off.
Mike, can we ask, I need to, on behalf of my audience, if you have the ability to figure out analytically, and the reason people ask this is about baseball, if you're analytic and like the Red Sox, how do you miss on a player? You should be able to tell when a young player is going to be good and when he's not going to be good based on your model and your code and algorithm. With you, if you have this ability, does that manifest itself in stocks? or in other investments where you have the ability to see momentum or to see things that are going to happen before they happen?
It's a question I get. I've never applied my secret powers to finance. Mostly because it's not my thing. Like my thing was never to be the richest man in the world, and I never really wanted to go down the finance and have an algorithm that could predict it. But it would make sense to me that I can find brands that are going to be hot. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you a story. In 2020, we were looking at 100 brands. And just to see which ones had momentum, which ones didn't. There was a brand called Crocs. Do you remember Crocs, the shoes that you wear?
Of course.
Okay. Crocs, which I hadn't really thought about in a long time. Crocs had broke my momentum scale. It had gone all the way to 100, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, where is this coming from? And I dug into it, and I realized that they had been, during the pandemic, they had been one of the heroes of the pandemic. They were taking care of first responders. They were taking care of nurses, doing giveaways. And then they started doing collaborations. At the same time, a major trend of come as you are, don't be too formal, wear what you like, be comfortable, had become a fashion trend. So Crocs sort of hit right at the right time, this low mass, high velocity, and they kept it going for 4 years. And that became a great stock.
But when you say that you don't want to apply it, I'm just going to push back a little because you're writing a book. You say finances. You want people to buy your book. We're promoting it. Not about golf, the life-changing joy of playing the game. It's out today. I want people to buy it and read it. I think you do too.
Absolutely.
I think that there is a profit component to writing a book.
There is a profit component,
which is to me, totally normal. By the way, this is a sports business show.
I'm gonna give mine to charity because I see there's worthy charities because I want to keep golf going. But yes, I do it to make money. I put a lot of money into the book to help other people.
And by the way, don't apologize for that.
Yeah,
that is totally normal and proper and actually incentivizing. And people aren't ashamed if that's what is happening. But when you say that you can't apply an algorithm to finance, in fact, it sounds like for sure you can.
I think you look. I think you can. I think there's a whole group of people that look for that type of trading. I think for what I'm trying to do based on social media, I don't know how predictive it could be. For brands, for people, for issues, it absolutely works.
Last question before I let you go. I want to talk about.
Thank you for letting me off the hook.
Crisis PR. And what you had to do and how that works. And I know you worked with the Dixie Chicks. And listen, everyone, we talk about PR a lot on Nothing Personal. We go through statements and talk about how funny some statements are where they're just, it's like they don't understand what the audience, that they treat the audience like idiots. What's the first thing you do when you're called in as a consultant and someone has a real problem? How do you try to manage it from the beginning when you meet the person like the Dixie Chicks who you know they may be finished?
You have to synthesize what the issue is and what the issue isn't. And the Dixie Chicks, which is a while ago, the issue was Natalie, who was a singer, had made that statement about George Bush overseas and said he wasn't from Texas. And she didn't think she did anything wrong. And she thought because she read Time and Newsweek, she was informed and she could make that kind of, why was everybody getting so upset? So I had to explain to her what the issue was and what the issue wasn't, and what it would take to get back into being the number one female country band in the world and have huge momentum. And, you know, the two sisters were a lot more open to it than Natalie. They wanted to just get back and go on. And Natalie sort of dug in a little bit. So we got them through it, but they didn't, I don't know if they wanted to change.
So do you agree then that in order to help people, they have to want to help themselves?
100%. That's the first thing, is they have to acknowledge it and want to do something different. You know, the other way is in crisis PR, the first thing you do is you fire the person who did it and you move on. The problem was they couldn't fire Natalie. She was the lead singer.
I'm a big fan of firing the person who's responsible.
Would you fire Natalie? She was the heart, and the two sisters had been playing for years. They would have had to find a new singer.
So here's the problem. The alternative, if you don't fire somebody in that position, is yes, they're still together, but they're done. Anyway, if you hire someone new to sing, it could be like the new lead singer of Journey. It could be just like Steve Perry, except not.
Van Halen did pretty well with Sammy Hagar, but again, they were tight. They wanted to explain themselves out of it. They did win, I think, a Grammy after it, and then they didn't ever sell out another show. It's something like that. When they made the movie, I was laughing that I was in it because I remember coming into the dressing room and they said, "You're going to talk to Natalie." We were in Austin; they were doing a concert, and then they said, "Do you mind if we record it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." And I didn't realize that I was going to become the punchline in the movie because I told them, "Look, this war is going great. George Bush's favorability is, over the top. You've got to, apologize because that's another way to do it." And they didn't. They famously didn't do it. Sort of some of the facts of the Iraq War came out, and they still never got anywhere. But they thought it was funny.
What a momentum killer when you make a PR move like that.
Yeah.
Mike Berland, the book again, not about golf, the life-changing joy of playing the game. Find it wherever you get your books. Read it because it's not just about golf. It's about life. And Mike has lived a life. Thanks for being on Nothing Personal. Appreciate you. We'll do it again.
I love it.
If you want to talk to me, it's pretty easy to do that. Mike, you're now off the show. We're now moving on with the show, but thank you. I do appreciate you being here. Thank you. I got to learn how to end interviews better, Coca. Like when you just, Le Batard's really good at that. It just ends and then you move on. I was moving on to So You Want to Talk to Samson. I wanted to make sure that people knew that if you want to get on the show, we do it every single Wednesday for an hour. It's called So You Want to Talk to Samson. Please call this number, 631-377-4869. That is the So You Want to Talk to Samson number. Leave a message. You may make the show tomorrow, Wednesday, for an hour, hour two. We will answer voicemails and questions that you may have for us. It's based on the movie Half Baked and the character Samson. So You Want to Talk to Samson. I wonder whether Steve Cohen is in a panic yet. Steve Cohen has gone from running a Mets team that was riding high. Soto wasn't playing well, but the team was playing great. Best record in the National League. NL East lead. Pitching staff made of players who, hard to imagine, hard to name any of the Mets pitchers other than Senga. I guess you could name Holmes if you wanted. Bunch of injuries, but no problem. Well, recently the Mets have fallen apart, and I wanted to tell you why you shouldn't be panicked. Because I'm surrounded by Mets fans here in New York who, when they've got one bad 10-game stretch, and believe me, it's bad, they're 1-9 in their last 10. It is true the pitching staff has fallen apart. And one of the great, wonderful stats about momentum that's given to me is that from the beginning of the season to June 13th, the Mets had the best pitching in baseball. Their ERA was 2.78. When you have the best pitching in baseball, you're going to win a lot of games. Since June 13th, and today is June 24th. So we're talking about the last 10 days. We're talking about a sample size that's so small in baseball, it is laughable and needs to be dismissed. However, for Mets fans, it's almost like they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. So yes, in the last 10 days, the Mets pitching has fallen apart. Instead of first in baseball, they're 27th in baseball. All of that is true. But here's the other thing that's true about the Mets that people seem to be forgetting, and they're dismissing it because they're sending out Acuna, they're sending out Alvarez, they're just making all these moves. Listen, do you know that right now the New York Mets are currently 46-33, a game and a half back of Philly? A game and a half back of Philly, who is 8-2 in their last 10, who has made up 7 games in the standings in the last 10. Do you know that the Mets are still in playoff positioning? Do you know that Juan Soto is playing better? Do you know the Mets are getting Montas back from injuries starting today? And do you know that Mets fans contact me at David P. Samson to say, how can they bring him back? He has a 12 ERA in his rehab starts. He made 6 minor league rehab starts and he stinks. I don't know how to more clearly tell you that a front office is not paying attention to the results in a rehab start. Do you think that if we send a pitcher down to rehab and they go 7 scoreless, that we're saying to ourselves, oi, is he ready? Nailed it. And on the other side, if he in a rehab appearance, man, he couldn't make it out of the first inning. He's terrible. Stinks. Keep him there. It's just a conversation that never happens. It happens with you as fans and the media because you think that somehow with Montas with the 12.05 ERA that he can't possibly perform at the big league level. But here's what you don't know. Do you know what pitches he was using? Do you know what order he was throwing? Do you know, was he doing back to front or front to back? Was he meaning pitching backwards or pitching forwards? Was he protecting himself by using only a certain percentage of his pitches a certain percentage of the time? All of that is planned in advance by the team. Hey, in your first rehab start, we're going to have you do 80% fastballs. And we'd like you to do it at 75% maximum effort. Then in your second start, we're going to work in a few breaking balls, and we'd like to do it with a man on because we'd like to see you from the stretch, and we're going to have you throw over 3 times, and if you could, fake to second base. Thanks so much. By the way, when you're on rehab and you're a hitter, we'd like you to, could you spend today, try to hit it the other way if you don't mind. Spit on all the fastballs. I want to make sure that your eyes are recognizing breaking balls. Can you do that? It is rehab. It is in order to get ready to pitch at the big league level. It is not meant to win at the minor league level or to be successful. So for everyone panicked about Frankie, now, could he get rocked today? Obviously, but that's part of the game. Is he a better option than anyone basically the Mets have? Yeah, that's why you sign him to the $17 million deal for 2 years. Is it a big deal that they're moving away from Alvarez or from Acuna? Does it mean panic? No, it means that it is really hard to have a big leaguer come up as a rookie and have uninterrupted service. That's number one. It happens, but those are generally superstars who are going to have huge, long careers. The majority of players that are up, they're down, they're sideways. They don't start off well. Then they go down. Then they come back. Then they're decent. Then they're not good again. That's for a great player. They get to be that. For a successful career, they get to be that. Don't talk about the Judges and the Stantons and the people who come up and stay up and perform at these levels that are just to die for. It's so rare. Do you know how names work? If one more person, Coca, texts me about Dickie Lovelady and about how the Mets announcers are going to deal with Dickie, and it's not little Dickie, it's full Dickie Lovelady. That's his name, folks, except it's really Richard. I have an Uncle Max whose name is Richard, not Dick. I don't quite understand why anyone would want to be called Dick or Dickie. Not my business. Don't care enough to ask. What I do know is that if you want to change your name as a big league player, you can't just do it. Nike be damned. Do you know that when Mike Stanton became Giancarlo Stanton, it took about a year because you have to notify the league and the union because they have to change licensing deals. They have to change trading cards. They have to change uniforms. They have to change scoreboards in every city, and teams get all the information before the season for all the players in the system, names, pronunciations. It's called digital media guides. They used to be printed. When you see names come up on a scoreboard, it's a programmed thing. Turns out that Dickie is going to be known as Richard always as he has. He just wants to be called Dickie. I'm in. It's not a big deal. A player comes in, hey, I like to be known as Sparky. No problem. We'll call you Sparky. Not your name, but we're good. Do you know that some players, when they get the quotes on their baseball card, let's say Richard, quote unquote, Dickie, close quote, Lovelady. By the way, drinking game. The number of times I say Dickie Lovelady, have a drink, because I'm going to keep saying it, because Dickie Lovelady is not the name. It's like Dirk Diggler. If anyone is thinking of Dickie Lovelady and not Dirk Diggler, then I'm wrong. It's like the opposite of Roman Anthony. The anti-baseball name. He may be amazing. I will confess to you, I don't think I've ever watched Dickie Lovelady throw a pitch that I can recall. Although maybe I saw him as Richard, not as Dickie. Well, I don't often see people as Dickie. I see them as just Richard, because I like seeing people for who they are, what they are. Doesn't matter what they want to be called. But he's not officially changing his name. People totally exaggerated that. Mets are funny. They'll make a story about anything. 1-9. Coke is like, they're terrible. I'm done with them. Why? It's June 24th. It's basically the middle of the middle. Players are always trying to get more. I have no issue with that. Somehow people mistake my past as thinking that I'm anti-player, anti-players getting money. It's not true. And for people who listen to 1,300 and however many episodes we've done, 1,302, this is 1,302, I'm more than happy to give players flowers or give owners or not. I'll go both ways. Sort of. I mean, in this respect. The WNBA has been telling you for a while that they're big and they're good and they're strong and they're worth money. And I've been telling you for a while that looking at their TV rights and using that as the sole example of the health of the WNBA is completely wrong to do. That was a pegged number from the full NBA deal. There's one group of people in the WNBA who don't yet quite realize that the owners of the WNBA in no way feel rich or lucky at the moment. They feel like they've got some momentum. They spoke to Mike Berland, our previous guest, and they said, wow, we really have a chance for some mass velocity situations. But what the players are doing in the WNBA is they are foreshadowing a major collective bargaining fight. As a matter of fact, the WNBA All-Star Game is less than a month away. We're almost there. And what the league players are doing in conjunction and in cooperation with their own union, they've started to make statements that are very meaningful. Sophie Cunningham is a name you may know from the Indiana Fever. Got famous for protecting and defending Caitlin Clark, as she should have. She came out with a statement when she was supposed to be interviewed talking about the game, but they planned this in order to send a message to the fans and the owners. The problem is when you hear the statement, it's not impactful for either the fans or the owners. She specifically said, on behalf of my teammates and every member of our union, I want to be very clear that we remain committed to negotiating the next CBA with the league and the teams in good faith and privately. Why does the union want a statement out there that they're negotiating in good faith? Because that's the law. You have to negotiate in good faith. If you're making $50,000 a year and nobody around you is making more than $60,000 a year, and you say that you want a deal where you're paid $1 million a year and everyone around you gets $1 million a year, there's an argument to be made in a court of law that says that's not quite good faith. That is a lack of reason in a way that is extremely significant. So, what do? You have to publicly say, baseball does this all the time. They come out, the players come out, the league comes out, Rob Manfred comes out. We are negotiating in good faith. It doesn't mean you are. It means you have to be able to prove that you did. But the first statement, we're negotiating in good faith. Let's keep going. We want to set the record straight, Sophie Cunningham said. This is a defining moment in the WNBA. As the league grows, it's time for the CBA that reflects our true value. We are fighting for a fair share of business that we built. I'm in. Why? Because that's what unions do. They take a look at profits of companies. They take a look at what they think are the books of companies, even though they don't have full access to everything. Or even when they do have full access, they purposely don't read it or comprehend it in the way that they should as it relates to general team finances. However, I digress. The reality is that when you have an opportunity to get more share of revenue, baseball players, when I got into the game, they were getting over 60% of revenue is going to payroll. Not sustainable. If you are above 50%, you're losing money guaranteed. And that's any industry. You cannot give your workforce more than 50% of your revenue. You're screwed because of all the other concomitant expenses that come outside of payroll. And that goes for any company. MLB is now down to about 47% roughly, and that's really the sweet spot. When revenue goes up, payrolls will go up. When revenue goes down, payrolls will go down. But you want to marry it to the 47, 48%. The salary cap leagues have about 50%, but there's cheating that goes on. The thing about what the players in the WNBA don't realize is they're too early for this. Their minimum salary right now and their payroll, let's say they make 60 grand or 65 grand, and the highest paid player can make, let's say, 250 grand, and you'd say, my God, the minimums in the NBA are 7 figures. In baseball, it's approaching 7 figures. It can't be that we're playing for 66 grand a year. Until you look at the business model and you realize the reason why you're getting paid that is the operations have been getting crushed year over year for multiple years. And they're not about to take the momentum that currently exists and monetize it for the players. They're taking the moment that exists and the momentum that exists, and they're monetizing it for themselves in order to pay down debt, in order to make themselves whole for their initial investments. The reason why you will hear the WNBA commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, she said, I'm very optimistic that we'll get something done. You've heard Adam Silver say it. You've heard players say it. You've heard owners say it. Everybody's optimistic that the WNBA, PA, and the WNBA owners and league will get a new collective bargaining deal done. My concern is that when there is a level of delusion that creates a gap between players and management that is so significant that that gap is something even Evel Knievel cannot overcome, I don't know how you get a deal when the expectation is that the WNBA is rolling in money and that money ought to be given to the players, and everyone feels sorry because the most they can make is $250K and the majority are making $70K. I just don't know what audience they will get for this, internally or externally. We will find out right now who's got the power with the WNBA. I could easily argue that the only person who should be talking about WNBA stuff on behalf of players is Caitlin Clark. I could make an easy argument that the WNBA Players Association ought to be telling all of them to stay quiet. And then when we have something to say from Caitlin, that will be what is meaningful because that will gain public sympathy, public approval, and above that, it may even sway owners. Now, we don't get swayed easily by stars and the biggest names in the business talking. Just last collective bargaining agreement with MLB, Scott Boras had half the people on the council, big-time names. Max Scherzer, Hall of Famer, talking. And guess what? Didn't matter a damn. With Caitlin Clark as the needle mover and the person most responsible for the WNBA to be in the position it's been, you would think that the WNBA players and union would reach out to Clark and say, we need your help here. If you could just release a statement, or if you could do one thing in order to show that you want for your teammates better than what they have, we'd really appreciate that, Caitlin. I'm going to do a second wait to see, Coca, if there's room on the document at davidsamsonpodcast.com. Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen. If it does, fine. If it doesn't, we'll revisit it. This WNBA negotiation before it's all said and done, meaning before the WNBA has a new CBA with its players, Caitlin Clark will have a public statement. The reason why I make that an official wait to see is that if you are the players and you know that you've got the ultimate hammer, you don't whip out the hammer on June 24th. You whip out the hammer at the very end when your fingers are stuck to the cliffside as it's slipping beneath your unmanicured nails as you are about to fall 200 feet into the abyss of your own death at best and broken legs, broken ribs, and concussions at worst. When you're at that point, right at the end, that's when you bring in Caitlin Clark. That's when she can have the most impact. And I'm going to assume that the WNBA PA is smart enough to recognize when you bring out the B team versus when you bring out the A team. We're always trying to win. That shouldn't be a question. I'm here to tell you that when the Cincinnati Reds designate a player who they've given money to, it stinks. It hurts. When you signed Jeimer Candelario for 3 years and $45 million, and you realize that, God, we owe him half that money, and he's just a waste of space, and there's no chance he's going to get better. To have the cojones to designate Jeimer Candelario, if you are the Reds, it's significant. So we had to do that. You designate people who are making money, you just swallow hard because you know you made a mistake. And you want to not have to admit this mistake publicly. You give it so much time to fix itself. You keep saying it's early, it's only year one, it's only year two, it's only May, it's only July. Listen, he's a normal second half guy. Man, we'll come up with anything to spin it so that you don't know that we made a mistake. But with Candelario, wow, he got torched by the Cincinnati Reds. Not only did he get designated, but then the GM there, the president of baseball operations, whose name is Nick Kroll, he said at the end of the day, you have to look at it as a sunk cost because you can't bring a player that's not going to help this team win. We're in a better spot with the players we have here. What an indictment of Candelario. It is true that when you sign a contract, it's done. That's the beauty of the players' union. It's all guaranteed. It's guaranteed against lack of performance. It's guaranteed against injury. It's guaranteed against a new sale, against the whim of an owner, a president, a GM. It's guaranteed by everybody and every scenario, other than bankruptcy of the team, in which case you're a creditor like everyone else. But don't worry, players. It's never going to happen. But for the Reds to have to give him $22.5 million, boy, that's smarts. It just hurts so badly when you come to the epiphany that the person you brought in to help your team actually hurts your team. It's an epiphany of epic proportions when you have to sit with the owner, and I've had to do it. Hey, it's David, sorry to bother you. Yeah, I got Larry or Mike or Dan, whoever. Got him on the phone, and we want to talk to you about Mr. X. He's not so good, is he? You keep telling us to do better to get rid of him, but now we're coming to you saying we really do want to get rid of him. Will you approve it? You see, there's a threshold in baseball, and I assume in any sport, where you allow your employees to do certain things as long as they tell you after. You don't read about it in the paper, but there's other things, and you know it when you see it, where you've got to go to the owner first. You've got to get permission immediately from the owner, because you do not give someone $22.5 million owed money when you're the Cincinnati Reds and just say, oh, this is part of the game. It is part of the game. It's the worst part of the game. When you're paying players not to play for you and opening up that player who can now sign for the minimum with any other team, they're not obligated to hold out for another $10 million at all. You can sign at the minimum. And that is the amount of money the Cincinnati Reds would get refunded as part of the full contract they have to pay out for designating a player on your roster with a long-term deal? What exactly is the upside? All of this power that the union thinks it doesn't have. This is the most powerful thing there is. The guarantee nature of the contracts, that's where the power is. Why do you think the holdout, Coca? Give me the name. What's the name of that Steelers rookie who has not signed because of guarantee language? We covered it last week. I don't know if I lost you, Coca. I can't hear you, but I just... Bengals. Jamal Stewart of the Bengals. Thank you, Coca. Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart. Thank you, Coca. Why did I say the Steelers? Thanks for being there. Let me just give you 2 more minutes on this just so you have something to talk about today during your day when you are a Cincinnati Reds fan or just a fan of baseball and you're looking at this sort of decision to designate a player, and then you send your GM out to tell you how bad that player was and how much better you're off without him. That is a sign that your season is not what your season was supposed to be. And when you look at the Reds, it's actually pretty clear to me that the Reds are fine. I mean, they're not the worst team in the world. They're not the best team in the world. They're 41-38. They're in the race, relatively speaking. They're not behind that many teams, 2 games out of a wild card spot, chasing 3 teams. Enough to make you believe that you've got a shot. Enough to tell you that this is the moment where the toughest decisions are getting made right now. Whether or not you have delusion that your team can do something or not. Last night on radio in Cleveland, I explained to the people of Cleveland that the Cleveland Guardians are in position where they are fooling people into thinking they're in the race because they're in the race. When you look at the Cleveland Guardians and look at all their statisticals, look at their stats, look at their run differential, look at the fact they're bottom of the barrel, below average in pitching and hitting, it's not sustainable where they are. The Cincinnati Reds, an example, to me, not necessarily sustainable where they are. However, when you are the Reds and the owner, Bob Castellini, and you've got a front office that operates mostly in fear and not out of intelligence or really suffers from great delusion, you are going to tell your fan base that we are doing everything we can right now and we're going to add to our team. But the problem is that sometimes you add to a team that doesn't have a chance, and I know this because I did it. I'm the one who always wanted to add because I always felt I was in it and I never wanted to let the team not feel like it had a chance. Buyers, not sellers. And it costs you. It costs you because immediately the season ends. You're not in the playoffs, or you get to play 1 game in the playoffs or 2, and then you're done. And meanwhile, you've given up a big piece of your future. I never learned my lesson because I wanted to only worry about today. The Cincinnati Reds are spending half their day telling you on one hand, this is so unfair, we need a salary cap. On the other hand, they are out there showing you what they really need is the discipline to not make the mistakes because they're not going to be able to cover them up. When you allocate money to a player who's not playing well and you end up having to release them, that hurts you not just for 1 year, but for multiple years. Paying people not to play, whether it's through injury or lack of performance, is the biggest market inefficiency in sports. We call it dead cat money in football. We call it injured list money in basketball and injured list money in baseball. It's the concept of paying players not to play. It's bad business. The way this ends is that the Reds move on and they use it as a badge of showing you that what they're doing is right, showing you that their care for winning is above all else. We deserve and demand to be playing meaningful games in September. The issue that baseball has is the number of teams who can't overcome mistakes like this is plentiful, and the number of teams who can take a mistake like this and not even blink. That's the Dodgers. Do you think they call in Candelario? They say, here's $22.5 million. It's just business. This is nothing personal.